Good morning, everyone, and welcome to the EON's webinar, Upscaling Europe's Digital Transformation. We have today with us more than 400 people around Europe and more than 100 in Spain, so very successful. That's one of the advantages of having this kind of virtual events. So thank you, everyone, for joining. As you all know, the COVID-19 pandemic has put a significant strain on businesses and consumers across the globe, as entities strive to enable business continuity and ensure the citizens have access to basic services, with no exception in the case of financial services. The COVID-19 pandemic has also highlighted the need for further digitalization and the establishment of a European digital market for financial services. European SMEs are a significant aspect of that part of the economy. Therefore, the digital transition will need to ensure that SMEs can access digital finance while also having the right framework in place that will allow them to be adequately protected against complex risks as cyber. In this context, coordination between the broader insurance and finance industry, InsurTechs and fintechs, and the public sector will be key in addressing such complex risks by leveraging on digital and data infrastructures to develop recovery and response mechanisms, as well as financially supporting the economy through a tailored approach. Hence, it becomes apparently that the European Union digital finance strategy represents a great opportunity to develop robust digital and data infrastructures across the European Union, as well as supporting European SMEs. For this reason, this morning EON decided to hold an interest debate among high-profile global professionals who know this subject closely and can help us define the current environment and deal with the matter. I want to thank especially all the speakers that are joining us this morning and accept our invitation to participate in such an event. I'm highlighting now to give the floor to Carlos San Basilio, Secretary General of the Spanish Treasury, and the Spanish Minister of Economic Affairs and Digital Transformation. Among his responsibilities, he includes international financial affairs, domestic financial policy, European economic and financial affairs, and the issuance and management of Spain's central government debt. It's a real pleasure and honor, Carlos, having you with us today, and the floor is yours. Thank you so much.
Thank you very much, Eduardo. Thank you to AON for organizing this event and having the ministry as one of your speakers. Indeed, as you just pointed out, coronavirus has had a huge impact in the Spanish economy, particularly in Q2. But we believe that we have set the grounds for a quick recovery, and that digitalization is going to play a key role in this recovery. Let me elaborate a little bit on these two aspects: the impact on the economy and the role of the digitalization. If we start with a reference to how the Spanish economy has been impacted by the coronavirus, well, it's well known that in Q2 Spain was the largest European Union economy with the sharpest decline of GDP. But a set of measures were adopted to weather this initial impact of the economy, of the coronavirus on the economy, and also to put in place the conditions for a quick recovery. The measures adopted are well known. I will not elaborate much on them. We acted on the economic side. We acted on three different lines. One of them was the temporary work schemes that the workforce for the recovery phase. On the liquidity phase, in the liquidity stage, we had two different lines of action. One was the moratorium, and here individuals could benefit from moratorium on their payments associated with mortgage loans and non-mortgage loans, consumer credit. And last, there was a very ambitious and I would say initiative of state guarantees provided by the Instituto Crédito Oficial ICO to loans from banks to businesses. The initial amount of the guarantee was 100 billion euro. due to the extensive use of this line in the early months of the crisis, it has been expanded with additional 40 billion euros. So we think that the whole package of 140 billion can cover the liquidity needs and the investment needs of companies to weather these difficult times. Under these conditions, with the measures adopted in April, March, April, and May, we could see a very fast and very quick recovery in Q3. So here, Spain was one of the largest large economies with the most intensive growth in Q3, and it was limited to a certain extent by the fact that there were already some, as is well known here in Spain, some the second wave already started having an impact in August. So there was a limited impact of the recovery on tourism. But even under these circumstances, due to the measures adopted, the economic tissue of the Spanish of Spain was in good shape. So the recovery was very fast. It is still to know how the year will end. Q4 again brings some uncertainty. It's clearly not going to be nothing close to Q2 nor to Q3. So it will stay somewhere in the middle because the impact of the confinement measures these recent months has been much more limited on the economy than it was in March and April. So here we believe we are in very good conditions for high growth in 2021. Once we have the vaccines and after the second wave, we start having less of an impact of the coronavirus in the society and in the economy. And here, when you think about the economy in 2021, there's an additional element that has to be brought to the discussion, which is the recovery plan within the next generation EU program that was agreed back in July, and that's going to have a significant impact in some economies, those most affected by the coronavirus, as is the case of Spain. So in our case, for instance, for 2021, we are already anticipating revenues from this program of around 27 billion euros for 2021. Under the Recovery and Resilience Plan, we are expected to get slightly above 60 billion euros in transfers over the coming few years. We are trying to concentrate all these transfers in the early years between 21 and 23, with, as I said, around 27 billion euros in 2021. And here, digitalization is going to play a key role because according to the regulation, which is currently being negotiated in Brussels, digitalization is one of the two main axes of the plan. One is green economy, but the second one is digitalization. So a very significant part of the total resources will be allocated to digitalization. And in our case, in Spain, this is also going to be the case when we assign the revenues we're going to get, as I said, around 27 billion euros for 2021. But the role of the Commission in terms of promoting digitalization is not exclusively on the side of the investment, although it's going to be huge, I would say. It's also on the side of regulation. So the European Commission has already announced a plan with several legislative initiatives to define very clearly the route in terms of digitalization in the European Union. So it promotes innovation, and at the same time, it ensures protection to the stakeholders. So here we don't have much time, but I just wanted to highlight two initiatives by the Commission, two specific regulations on which we have just started to work. One of them is the one called DORA, which is addressing the issue of how to deal with cyber risk on different fronts. So it will be, I mean, it will change a lot in months to come of the negotiations, but it first states how the companies have to identify the cyber risk of their activity, how they have to react to risk events, and how this whole framework is structured across Europe. For instance, one of the clear example of what impact DORA is going to have on the provision of digital services is, for instance, the use of the cloud. So basically outsourcing of systemic and key activities to digital providers. So it is done in a safe way for the whole system. So DORA is on one side one of the key initiatives by the Commission. On the other side, we also have MiCA, which is addressing specifically the cryptocurrency environment with a clear definition of the rules for asset reference tokens, for e-money tokens, one single currency or against several currencies. So it's a way to really set the rules and try to set a common, clear framework of supervision as well for these activities, where we see that the pandemic, if anything, has increased, has accelerated the pace of incorporation of all these issues to our real life, to our economy. So just from my side, this would be the second message. The first message is that the impact of the coronavirus in the Spanish economy has been huge, that the conditions have been set for a quick recovery. We saw that in Q3, and we expect to see it again in 2021 with a key role played by digitalization and by the recovery plan. Second is that the Commission is committed also to define clearly conditions for promoting innovation and ensuring protection for stakeholders, with DORA and MiCA being two very key elements of this initiative. And third and last from my side is to talk a little bit of what we're doing in Spain. In Spain, on one front, we have again, I could use the same analysis as for Europe. We have the investment part of digitalization and the regulatory part of digitalization. In terms of investment, as I said, digitalization will be one of the main areas of investment in the coming years, with this about 60 billion euros that's going to be invested under the recovery and resilience plan between 2021 and 2023. On the regulatory side, there is a recent initiative that I wanted to mention to you to finalize my intervention, which is the sandbox. As you know, there was been a recent law approved by the Spanish Parliament in terms of how to promote digital transformation of the financial system. Here we set some of the main guiding principles of legislation on this domain, like proportionality, and here again, the same as I was saying for the Commission, we're trying to combine both promoting innovation and ensuring protection. But beyond these main guiding principles that will lead our legislative activity in months and years to come, and also from the supervisors, there is going to be also one specific instrument, which is the sandbox, which is a regulatory sandbox, which is something that has already been in place for some time, for instance, in the most dynamic or advanced countries in this domain, like we've had a very close contact, for instance, with Singapore or with the UK. And here what we're doing is we're setting up a control area for putting in place innovative projects on the financial system. They can address all these sectors that Eduardo mentioned at the beginning: insurance, banking, securities markets, payments. So here we have a broad view at what is the financial domain, and what we would do, what we are going to do is we're going to issue in the course of the coming weeks, probably 2 to 3 weeks, the conditions for the applications for this sandbox. Here, what we expect is that the companies will be presenting to us, and us is not just the Treasury; it's kind of combination of the Ministry of Finance, of Economy as a regulator, but also the supervisors, the Banco de España, Dirección General de Seguros, and CNMV. And the four of us will be assessing the projects presented over the course of probably end of the year, beginning of next year, with three ideas in mind. One is how innovative they are. If they really are bringing to the financial sector something new that was not done before. Second, if there's really a gray area in terms of supervision or regulation for this activity that deserves this specific treatment under the sandbox. And third, that the project is very mature and ready for implementation in the very short term. If these conditions are met, then there's going to be a process by means of which the supervisor, the relevant supervisor, the competent supervisor will be signing a protocol with the company, defining the terms under which the activity can be developed, and making sure that all the necessary safeguards are adopted to limit the risk to the participants. And then once the protocol is signed, the activity will start being delivered, and we will all learn from the experience. The company itself, the supervisors, and as the regulators, and we will see really how this activity should be reflected in the regulation or in the supervisory activity. So it's a way of promoting innovation and at the same time learning in the process for all parties involved in a limited environment to ensure that the process is well controlled and safe. So from our side, we think that this is going to be a step forward. In the case of Spain, we have identified a lot of companies with interest in the sandbox. We will make a series of rounds of process of application. So the fact that one project doesn't join the sandbox in the first patch, which is going to open in the coming weeks, doesn't mean that it cannot do in the second patch. It will depend on some fine tuning on the conditions. So it's not a one-off. It's a window that's going to be open regularly over the coming years and hopefully improved as we learn in the process. So that will be all from my side, Eduardo. I would like to wrap up this whole discussion with this final a very clear example of the commitment of also the Ministry of Economy with digitalization. And we're going to see a lot of that over the course of 2021, which is going to be probably a key year for digitalization in Spain. On one side, because of the investment that's going to come through the plan, and on the other side, because of the lessons that we expect to learn in 2021 with the use of the sandbox. That will be all from my side, Eduardo. Thank you very much.
Okay, thanks a lot, everyone, for joining us today. Good morning. Thanks to Carlos and Basilio for the excellent overview about the Spain panorama and the digitalization challenge that we are facing now. I am Elena González Blanco, General Manager of Europe at Hover Wallet and InsurTech, and since January 2020, an Aon company, which I'm very proud of that. And it's a great pleasure for me to moderate this panel about digital finance today. We are happy to have with us 5 fantastic speakers coming from different areas from finance, insurance, and technology. Margaret Sotman-Richnen, I'm sorry for my Dutch, is the chairperson of the executive board of Aon Holdings VV and Aon Group International. She also oversees Aon Center for Innovation and Analytics, which underpins Aon's work in the areas of risk, retirement, and health. Trevor Miner is the head of innovation at Lloyds. She is also a member of the InsurTech board and part of the FinTech delivery panel, which brings together leading UK-based FinTech startups, financial services institutions, as well as representatives from the HM Treasury and the Financial Conduct Authority. Vicente Cancio is the Chief Executive Officer of Zurich Group in Spain. He has been at the Zurich Group for more than 25 years, working in multiple positions and jurisdictions globally, with vast experience in insurance and underwriting. Diego Rubio is the Director of the Spanish National Office of Foresight and Strategy. He's also the founding Executive Director of the Center for Governance of Change at EI School of Global and Public Affairs. And lastly, Joaquín de Valenzuela is the Senior Vice President leading on digital banking at Temenos. He's also the Governor at the Monmouth International School of London, and he was formerly at Salesforce and Oracle in the area of financial services with extensive experience in technology, data, and cloud. Thanks a lot to everybody for being here today with us. On your right screen, here you have a Q&A panel in case you want to ask questions. That's for the audience. We will leave some minutes at the end to answer them. During these pandemic times we are living, there is a viral joke floating around LinkedIn and Twitter which asks people what inspired their digital transformation, their CEO, their CTO, or COVID-19. We don't need to ask the audience to vote now, but I'd like to ask our speakers, how did the COVID-19 have an impact to the process of digitalization, both from a consumer point of view and from a business point of view? Please, Trevor Maynard.
Yeah, I mean, I think that the pandemic has really accelerated the need for a resilient digital business. We've seen a lot more home working, of course, and also a lot more use of cloud solutions using a variety of services. And actually, this is something that Lloyds has done some work on. In 2017, we did a report looking at an attack on the cloud and how much of an economic effect this would have, just losing the cloud for a few days. It was estimated at $54 billion and with an upper estimate of over 100 billion. So we know that the cloud is super important, and therefore being resilient to failures there is very important. And actually, I'm responsible for something called Lloyds Lab, which is our innovation accelerator. And we brought in a company called Parametrics, who have developed a parametric cloud protection solution backed by some of our managing agents at Lloyds. And this will basically pay if the cloud is taken down for a period of time, helping companies like SMEs survive that crisis. So yeah, I would say that the pandemic has very much accelerated the focus on this, and as the insurers, we need to be ready to respond to it.
Thanks, Dr. Joaquin. What do you think on the topic?
So when you Google COVID-19 and Black Swan, you get 80 million results. So, and to be honest, there are many discussions if it's really a black swan or not, but it's clear that it's an unexpected event and that has shocked the financial services industry and has accelerated also the digitization processes. So I think that one of the main reasons for that acceleration is because of the change in the consumers and the customers' behaviors. So before the pandemic, we were seeing that a baby boomer used to go to a branch once a month or once a week. And now these same customers are using an app, are using a banking website. We were seeing like, as an SME business owner was very reluctant to share any personal information with the financial institution, and now is having a Zoom meeting in the living room and sharing personal information with the business banking advisor. He is not shy anymore and is not reluctant to share that info anymore. So the financial institutions have realized that this is very important, that there is a fundamental change in the customer behavior and that the interaction is more and more digital. Also, from a business perspective, I think that they are basically trying to achieve in 1 year, in months or 1 year, what they had planned to do in the long term as part of the strategic plans. And they have also realized that the digitization is much more than activating a new channel, a WhatsApp channel, or a couple of digital journeys to process their request for a government-backed loan. It's about a new culture, it's about a new organizational model, and it's also about putting the customer at the center and knowing more about those customers, how to help them to achieve their goals, how to provide the relief that they deserve during this crisis. And well, it's a new engagement model, a new paradigm that, well, will be in a standard in the industry in the next new normal.
Wow, that's pretty a challenge. So one of the main topics that brings us here today is that the European Commission published on the 24th of September this year, 2020, a digital finance package. Marguerite, could you please explain us what is Europe trying to achieve with its digital finance strategy? What are the priorities and the challenges you see there?
Thank you, Elena. Good morning. It's a pleasure to be with you today. As Diego already elaborated on, digitization has happened with that speed this year, which actually implies that the future is here with us now. Something indeed which was planned for 10 years has happened this year. And I think the European Union has realized that they need to work across the developments in the world, and they want to create a very competitive European financial sector which gives customers access to innovative financial products while ensuring also consumer protection and financial stability. And so the aim of the digital finance strategy is to make Europe's financial services more digital friendly and to stimulate responsible innovation and competition among those financial service providers in the European Union. It aims at, actually, it has four real aims. One is reducing fragmentation in the digital single market, that consumers can have access to those products and that those fintech startups scale up and grow. Second, it will ensure also that the European financial services rules are fit for the digital age, for applications such as artificial intelligence and blockchain. And also data management is at the heart of today's strategies. And in keeping with the Commission's broader data strategy, the objective of today's measures is actually to promote data sharing and open finance while maintaining the European Union's very high standards on privacy and data protection. We're all familiar with GDPR. Finally, the strategy aims to ensure a level playing field among providers of financial services, be they traditional banks or technology companies, same activity, same risks, same rules.
Thanks a lot, Marguerite. Very interesting view of this European Digital Finance Package that I encourage you to read and go through. In this technology ecosystem that you are describing, data are said to be the new oil. How important is the role of data to make digital changes a reality, Vicente? Vicente, you want to take this one, or Trevor?
Sorry, I was in mute. Yeah, absolutely. Data is critical for insurance. Has been always. We have always managed months and millions of data. Now this is possible on a terrible speed thanks to technology, and it's part of our oil. No, it's part of our DNA. COVID-19 has destroyed a commonplace that was that insurance cannot be digital because it's too complex or because this is a kind of people business. It's true that the insurance in general is lagging behind of this digital wave of our society, but it will happen. It will happen probably in 3-4 years. We'll see the first insurance digital companies that today is not offering about that. So these will be, of course, absolutely driven by data. And I want just to point out that the ethical use of data is absolutely critical and should be a matter of concern for all of us as well.
Thanks a lot, Vicente. Very interesting point. What do you think about that, Trevor?
Yes, definitely agree with data being the oil of the economy, and you need strong data standards where possible. So if you take something like exposure data, which is data about where properties are located and things like that, we do catastrophe modeling in the insurance industry, and I'm part of something called Oasis. I'm actually chairman of that group, which has an open architecture CAT model on GitHub. And they are aiming to create data standards so that data can be passed from client to broker to insurer to reinsurer in a more useful way. And it's the same is true for cyber risks, etc. The more we can have people really seeing the importance of data and having some standards, the better we will be in understanding things. Data is crucial for spotting trends, estimating frequencies, estimating severity of losses. It helps you make the case for change because you can spot changes coming and show things are changing, helps you price risks. And actually, Lloyd's has a modernization agenda called the Future at Lloyd's, and data standards are at the heart of that. There are advances like natural language processing that let you use unstructured data, and that's really exciting. But so 100% data is critical.
Completely agree, and natural language processing is my favorite topic. Data are crucial, but not alone, because one of the most relevant challenges in digitalization process has been human capital. Could you explain us why is talent so relevant, and which are the strategies that countries are developing to attract, develop, and retain the digital talent? Diego?
Thank you. Well, yeah, I think you're completely right. If you look at the past 200 years of history, one of the things you learn is that the main bottleneck during tech revolutions is not investment or regulation. It is in fact human beings. It doesn't matter whether you're talking about the spinning genie, the automobile, or AI systems. At the end of the day, for these technologies to thrive, people need to learn how to use them, how to work with them. And this takes time, sometimes a lot of time, an entire generation or so. Why only 17% of European SMEs use cloud services, or why only 12% use big data? These technologies are not expensive anymore. It is because the people in these businesses doesn't know how to use these technologies. And by people, I mean both employees and consumers. So this is a crucial bottleneck. Right now, surveys tell us that around 45% of European adults take part in training programs every year. But the truth is that these are mostly non-formal and informal education, which means, they watch a YouTube video or they attend a short seminar. And this is clearly not enough. And in fact, if you look at data on digital skills and financial skills, the EU has barely shown any progress in the past decade, which is a lot of time. So this is a real challenge. And to me, the answer is rather simple. For every euro we devote to develop or acquire new tech, we should be investing another euro in upskilling or reskilling programs for our workforce. Otherwise, there's always going to be this gap.
That's a really relevant point, and I was also worried about culture and talent. Margaret, what do you think on the topic?
Yeah, I very much agree with the previous speaker. Doug Conant actually said, in order to be successful in the marketplace, you need to be successful in the workplace first. And talent is a very relevant, important factor for being successful and to increase profitability. If you then realize that by 2025, 75% of our workforce will be millennials, it actually also already staggering number. And the millennials are actually, which is published in the Millennial Engagement Impact Report, are actually engaged with purpose. And back to the talent skills, there's definitely a talent skill gap with digital. And this was also actually acknowledged in a Human Capital Solutions report Aon actually issued earlier this year, which states that 59% of the HR leaders before COVID-19 started have difficulties identifying digital talent. So indeed, it's important to make sure that we pay the right attention to it and that we ensure that the right talent is being identified, retained, and promoted.
It's a really relevant point. And for that, in September, the European Commission adopted its first ever strategy foresight report, aiming to identify emerging challenges and opportunities to better steer the European Union's strategic choices. Diego, you are more familiar with this topic. Could you explain us why will strategic foresight is so relevant for European policy making, and how will a country like Spain support it?
Yeah, sure. Well, let me answer that with a very short story. In the 1950s, when China was starting to industrialize, they realized that it was too late for them to develop the internal combustion engine because, European, American, and Japanese manufacturers were already well ahead. So they didn't. Instead, they asked themselves, what is going to be the next big thing? And they started to develop that. They started to develop the electric engine. The rest of the story, you can figure it out, right? I believe that we have to do the same. Yesterday, all the strategic foresight offices of the EU member states met at the European Commission Directorate for Research and Innovation precisely to discuss this. And there was an agreement that
because things at the digital space are happening so fast here, but also elsewhere. The only way we can get ahead of our competitors and get ahead of problems for instance, in regulation, is to start developing an anticipatory approach to these issues, both in terms of what kind of technology we should be investing in or developing, but also in terms of how we should adapt our regulatory frameworks to those technologies, right? This was the idea behind the Horizons 2020 program, but that was only mainly focused on research and innovation. We believe that we have to expand the same approach to any other realm, from financial to insurance to education to anything, right? So Spain has created early this year a strategic foresight office at the Prime Minister's cabinet to do that, but also France and many other countries are doing the same. The EU has created a foresight unit as well. So I think we need to change the approach and start thinking more in the long term and more looking forward rather than just dealing with the problems when they are right in front of our nose.
Thanks a lot, Diego. A very relevant topic to follow. Yeah, financial services companies are adding products and services outside of their original focus to find new monetization opportunities. In the process, they are blurring the lines between verticals. And I would like to ask you, Vicente Cancio, how is digitalization changing the competition landscape?
It will increase the competition landscape. I will distinguish, because the digitalization meaning is vast, has multiple meanings and multiple understandings. So in one hand, we have the digitalization of the insurance companies, so how they can simplify the processes, how they can provide a better customer experience, how it can be more effective. And then the second block for me that is probably more interesting at the moment is the emergence of the new digital market. So consumers that are changing their behavior and they would like to go direct, they would like to go digital, as in any other industry. The response of Zurich to that is Zurich Link in Europe. We have built this digital platform a year ago, and it's now only functioning in Spain and in France. It will be very soon in other European countries. Our experience as this market has no offering today, but it will need to be built in the coming years, particularly for the personal lines market. I agree that the commercial lines will have probably a long journey ahead. And I have to say as well that the collaboration in this respect between traditional insurers and fintechs and insurtechs, as in the case of Cover Wallet, has been a fantastic experience for us. Our 2 years of collaboration has given us a lot of learnings and a lot of experience in this. Thank you.
Glad to hear that, Vicente. From the technology perspective, what do you think on this digitalization changing the landscape, Joaquin?
So I think that digitization is removing barriers, is also dropping frontiers, increasing competition, but it's also creating amazing opportunities. I think that there is a massive opportunity now in the market, as there is a general interest in accelerate the digitization processes to improve customer service, to streamline business processes, increase productivity, gain operational efficiency, and very important to, let's say, make progress in moving into an API-driven economy. In this particular regard, I think that what we will see is that some of the traditional players, the incumbent players, see how their competitive advantages are diluted, and the fintech and InsurTech companies gain more relevance in the market. And this is going to represent a massive opportunity for both type of companies to collaborate. And we will see new business models emerging where both the incumbent players and the new InsurTech and fintech companies really collaborate and redefine the value chain.
Thanks, Joaquin. I definitely will quote your sentence of API-driven economy. I really like that. But let's complete with my last question, which is that the European finance strategy includes legislative proposal. By making rules more digital-friendly and safe for our consumers, the Commission aims to leverage synergies between high innovative startups and established firms in the financial sector while addressing associated risks. But here comes a very difficult question, which is, do you think that regulatory changes will enable or hamper the digital transformation? Diego, please.
Well, this is a very old dilemma, as you know. There is a lot of research on this topic, and in a nutshell, what it shows is that regulation can hamper innovation on any occasion, but that it can also be a powerful stimulus to it. I know that European companies think that EU member governments and EU institutions are too slow and too annoying in their regulatory processes, and they're right. But I believe that this regulation is also one of our key strengths, because it is making us being seen globally as a trustworthy digital environment, and is allowing us to be the leaders in fields such as privacy, equality, consumer rights, and others, which are key at the digital realm, right? So in my view, what we have to do is two things. We need to move from a traditional prescriptive regulation towards a more flexible regulation. And there's a lot of people talking about that. And also, secondly, we have to abandon what it has been called the innocence in which Europe has often approached the digital race. And we have to start leveling the playing field, providing a stronger support to European companies, fighting back the more aggressive approach that other regions, such as US or China, sometimes have. We have to be more concerned about the rights of digital consumers, especially when working with these foreign companies, so on and so forth.
Thanks, Diego. Very interesting point. Margaret, I think that you have a strong vision on that, and I would like to hear that.
Yeah, no, I really share Diego's comments. It's a very complex situation we're in. And on one hand, we would like to make sure all the consumers are protected. On the other hand, we would like to make sure that consumers, that they have the best financial products possible. And that we actually, as companies who are working in this environment, that we enhance profitability, reduce cost, and increase customer loyalty. So it's a challenge. And the European Commission, by putting a level playing field in force, actually helps us across the European Union to become a stronger playing in this field. And I think the competitive edge and competitive advantages which this offers Europe are actually overruling the fact that some might say there's too much regulation, especially in this field. It's actually now enabling innovation. And the minister already elaborated on DORA and the cryptocurrencies. All the new aspects of the digital finance strategy will actually enable us to embrace those new technologies, to embrace those new developments, and put a good level playing field across Europe in place.
Really interesting point, and much to talk about this in the future. So taking back to SMEs are crucial for European economy, and especially in countries like Spain, where they are 90% of the total number of companies. In this point, I would like to ask you how we can ensure the access of SMEs to digital sphere while also protecting them against complex risks. Trevor, please.
Thank you. Yeah, I do think SMEs are perhaps more at risk than some. They need appropriate risk transfer solutions, but they don't have large risk departments who are going to structure products for them. They can be more materially affected. So I talked earlier about things like cloud outages, and for small companies, they may not have the resources to survive a long cloud outage and then become insolvent. They might be hit by ransomware, and that might be beyond their IT recovery capabilities, and that would affect their reputations. So SMEs need adequate protection for these risks, and we kind of need to be able to sell to them in a way that's affordable and understandable, because they don't have these large insurance buying departments to translate things. So I mentioned Lloyd's Lab before, and actually I've got an example of one of the companies in there, a company called Leia, which was in our first cohort in 2018, and they're a digital broker. And they've got a great product which integrates with the cloud accounting systems, so the SMEs don't have to fill in the forms because it gets the data from the cloud accounting systems for them. And it has a recommendation engine, so it can say, companies like you bought this. So it's sort of effectively treating an SME a bit more like a personal lines customer and trying to make it as easy as possible for them. It's easier for carriers to integrate their quote engines as well with this sort of system. So you get faster quotes, cheaper commissions, and it's designed with the SME in mind. So I think SMEs are vitally important to the economy, and they do need in the digital economy some sort of special services.
Thanks a lot, Trevor. Talking about risk and insurance, we could not way to hear the words of Vicente in that sense. What do you think, Vicente, for SMEs?
SME has been clearly the most impacted segment in the industry, at least in our country, of course, because the economical structures of itself, the relevance of the entertainment tourism industry, and we see how the landscape of our city has changed over the last months. So they are severely impacted. That's our first statement. The second is how to resolve it. It's not simple. I think it's not just in our hands, offering protection to the changing risk landscape that we are having, not just because of the pandemic, but also because other threats are becoming more and more important, like cyber attacks or the risk of losing the knowledge of the patents and others. So there are many new risks that just with the collaboration between public entities and private entities, we can move ahead. So I think we are good on modeling risk, we are good on transferring risk, we are good on assessing, and if we combine these assets with the financial strengths of our states, we can do things really, really extraordinary for SMEs.
Yes, that's a very important point. And what we are seeing that despite this changing landscape, InsurTech and insurance is getting more and more stronger. In spite of COVID-19, insurers continue to invest heavily in companies, and big tech also continues to creep into insurance. So one of the hot topics you have already mentioned is cybersecurity. Vicente, how we can manage risks such as cyber risk, and what's the significant role that the insurance industry can play to enable this cybersecurity consciousness?
COVID-19 has made even more prominent or relevant the cyber exposure. So we have societies digitally connected, companies, businesses more digitally connected than ever. So we have millions of people working digitally. So we are, of course, much more exposed than ever. And we know that the cyber attacks has multiplied by 2 over the last 5 years. We know that there's a market today that is 25 billion globally of cyber protection, but 80-90% of this market is a US market, because this, at the moment, they are operating in a much more effective way than in Europe. We expect this market to move to nearly 80 billion in 2024. So I think we need to activate and clarify what is needed to have a cyber protection market effective in Europe, and which are the elements that this market has to be. It's not just about risk transfer. There's a lot of things we need to ensure that are rightly done, like assessing, offering services to our customer, sharing data, a much more broader collaboration framework between states, and so on. So there's still some work to be done to offer or protect our society in front of this newly emerging risk.
Well, sounds amazing. 25 billion of market cyber protection, and so few still companies that are conscious in Europe, and especially in Spain, it's to be worried about. So I think we have to create more conscious about that, definitely. And related to technology, we also talked a lot about artificial intelligence, machine learning, cloud computing, and big data analytics. That's technologies that have enabled the launch of new services and business models by established financial institutions and market entrants. How important is the role of these enabled technologies for InsurTech and FinTech, Marguerite?
Extremely important. As Vicente, maybe back to cyber for a moment, already indicated, we have more and more sensors at the moment also. And I think that what you see on the cyber end, that if you realize that nearly 50% of the new to market buyers of cyber insurance are small companies, which I described less than 50 million in revenue. And those companies are at risk. They have increasingly been confronted with phishing and ransomware the past months, and they're exposed to very limited resources. So they need more sophistication in their protections. And technology can help them. And emerging technology actually can be folded into 4 themes of innovation and disruption, which is digital experience, analytics and data, IoT and sensors, and advanced technology. And those technology present opportunities in insurance in order to provide the right products, making sure that the customer experience is improved, underwriting processes are improved, and using data to address new risks and improving operational efficiencies. And especially artificial intelligence and all that can help us to identify those risks. Because if we go back to cyber, this is the moment we're having a dilemma. Because on the one hand, the supply, us, the insurance companies who would like to provide the solutions, have actually problems identifying what is the risk, what are the actuarial data needed. And on the other hand, the demand, SMEs and anyone who would like to buy an insurance, would like to get protected, are also trying to identify what are the risks I'm exposed to.
Yes, absolutely right. And from the technology point of view, what do you think, Joaquin, given that you have been working in the technology side for many years already?
So I think that most of the new fintechs and insurtechs are born in the cloud, and that means that they get from scratch an amazing competitive advantage. But it's more than that. When you add artificial intelligence and you add the data analytic platforms, you realize that when thinking in time to value and business flexibility, that are two of the value propositions that most of the fintech and insurtechs take to the market, well, they really maximize the benefits of those technologies. I think that in particular, data is the new gold, and artificial intelligence and data analytics is the way to extract value from that data, structured and unstructured data, and also to collect information from many different incumbent companies, from different stakeholders in the market, aggregate that information, anonymize that information, and really make an amazing use of it. Supercharging the employees, the agents in insurance, or the relationship managers in banking, and also leveraging that information to improve, again, the customer service and accelerate the digitization journey.
Yeah, that's a fantastic view, Joaquin. But I would like to bring a quote from Jeff Bezos, the CEO of Amazon, that says that if there is one reason we have done better than our peers in the internet space, it's because we have focused like a laser on customer experience. And that really does matter in any businesses. Vicente, I would like to know your opinion on how will technology help to improve customer experience in insurance and finance?
It is happening. So insurance, we have the label of being very complicated, and it's true. Every complicated in all our universe, not just in the contracts, but also in our service. If you really need help, to deal with us sometimes, and this is changing, very rapidly thanks to technology. We are now able to provide much more faster and a seamless, rapid, perfect, instant experience to our customers. I'd like to point out as well that sometimes insurtechs are associated to the digital. So insurtechs are accelerators of digital. They can be fantastic allies of us, of insurers, but I think the financial strength and the resources that the insurers have will make the difference in the digital sphere in the coming years. So just between the alliance between both worlds, we'll see our insurance industry moving ahead.
Fantastic, Vicente. And from the technological point of view, what are the strategies that companies are developing to work on this, improving the customer experience? Joaquin?
So I think that technology is absolutely key to accelerate this journey to become a customer-centric company. So if you have a look on the different areas, considering the first one that is about building a 360 policyholder view, we need to, let's say, have a complete view and holistic view of what this policyholder represents for the institution, for the insurer. We need to understand all the interactions that have been done through different channels and touch points. We need also to understand the transactions, the products that this person has. So we need to really combine the best of breed capabilities in terms of CRM and transactional skills. So you need technology for that, but you also need to supercharge, again, the employee, the agent in the insurance companies, and provide this person with data insights that allow the agent to have a much better and meaningful interaction with the policyholder. Finally, technology is absolutely key to streamline the business processes. So what we cannot pretend is to just use the business processes that were developed 30 years ago to operate in a digital world when the customer has a completely different set of expectations and is really looking to interact with the institution mostly through digital channels.
Yeah, you're absolutely right. But as Vicente said before, there is still a challenge on simplifying the insurance world. We have still some work to do there, and we are on that. So, and I would like to finish with, let's say, a very difficult question that I'd like to ask Trevor Maynard, given his experience as a member of the InsurTech board. How significant is the coordination between the industry and the public sector to address digital risk and digital operational resilience? How we could achieve such collaboration, Trevor?
Yeah, that's a great question. Thank you. And I'll start by saying that public-private partnerships can be very powerful, and I'm all for them in the right place. Definitely, they can be very hard to organise as well. If I give an example from outside of tech, the Insurance Development Forum, this was set up in 2015, and it's about protecting insurance gaps globally. So different countries, some have more or less insurance. There's many risks around the world that aren't covered. And what we've found is on the insurance side is that the supply side is absolutely fine here. Insurers, brokers, reinsurers are all keen to take part in this market. They want to diversify their businesses. They want to open up new markets. But the demand side is very hard. So what you find is that there are ever-moving officials in different countries who you spend about 18 months, 2 years explaining how it all works, and then they move on to their next department and you start again. And it's also very difficult to make the case for some of these things because there are competing priorities. Do you invest in a school or a hospital, or do you buy insurance, for example? It's a tough question. We think buying insurance helps protect the economy that you've created so far, and it stops you falling behind if you have a disaster. So I would say to your question, coordination is great, and there could be similar issues to think through here on the digital transformation side, but it will be difficult and challenging, but it's very much worth trying to do it. And we've heard a lot of things today about cultural barriers. And one of the things I wanted to say, I was reflecting on an earlier comment, was having ministers and others talking about the need to innovate on a regular basis is extremely powerful for us, because actually if you look at most companies are structured to deal with their BAU. That's what they're there for. That's what all their executives are there for as well. And they don't have necessarily innovation in their DNA. So I actually think that, you know, just saying it over and over again, we need to change, think of customers, innovate, is really powerful and important, and we should carry on doing that.
Thanks a lot, Trevor. Actually, it was a very difficult question and a very complex answer. Yeah. So I would like now to open the floor to our audience and have some questions that have been posted on the Q&A section. And I encourage you, if you have still some questions, to write down there. I will start like one posted by Fernanda, who says, how could we take advantage of digitalization if customers change their behavior to more human and face-to-face relation? And there is also another question which is related to that by Salvatore, which is digitalization, everybody's talking, but we don't see a lot of success stories. And he's asking by the agent's role regarding the technology and how to make sure that digital strategy and human interaction, especially in the case of agents and insurance, is combining. So for any of the speakers who wants to take the point of human interaction and digitalization.
I say something, Elena. I think we have proven in these last 10 months that physical sales are not strictly essential for insurance. We can do remote sales in every type of segment or industry. Human interaction is fantastic, but I think if we can aspire to a much more efficient way of business, and this is what technologies will bring up to us.
And I echo, Elena, I echo Vincente's remarks. We've seen that also at the moment with the renewals ongoing, that of course we can see that our exchange is becoming a little bit more transactional. The word partnership is something which has been defined recently at a discussion with risk managers and insurance companies across Europe And while we used to talk about partnerships in the past, it's now more about relationships, and a relationship can have its ups and downs. And in a renewal season, it's also really making sure that we base our renewals upon the facts which are indeed counting and are relevant for us all. And so indeed, technology is enabling us to do things more efficient, cost effective, and reduce costs, which I think is a good thing for the marketplace.
So I think that implementing a digital engagement model doesn't mean that you lose the human touch. I think that you need to keep that as like the cream in the coffee, and that if we have a look on the new models, they are mostly based on advisory. So we move from products to really trying to understand the customer needs and trying also to help the customer to achieve the goals that they have. So I think that this is super important in the next new normal.
Yeah, definitely. I agree with you. I mean, machines and human interaction and artificial intelligence will not take the roles of our jobs. And if something the pandemic has made relevant is that technology is very useful, but it's not a substitution of human beings working on their respective expertise areas. So here I would like to finish with a quote from Chris Skinner, a financial services transformation guru, who says, "Ignoring the technological change in a financial system based upon technology is like a mouse starving to death because someone moved their cheese." So after this fruitful conversation, we have a lot of food for thought. So I hope that you will not starve like the little mouse that this man was referring to. Thanks a lot for all your contribution. We will try to publish a summary, trying to gather all the points that have mentioned here, but each of those points are worth another webinar or another section or another paper. So thanks a lot for joining us today. I hope that this has just been the start of everything and that we will continue in several occasions on conversation and opportunities to put Europe in the world roadmap and to put Spain also and insurance and digital finance in the place that they deserve, thanks to our common efforts. Thanks a lot to everyone and hope to see you soon.